Hello, friends. Welcome to We Are Change Fresno on 1680 AM Conservative Talk. I am your host, Stuart Webb, with my co-host, Sam Chaney. We're going to get into some news. It was a big day for news this week. I could hardly finish a page of news that Sam printed for me because it's just outrageously unbelievable. And it has to be dealt with. It has to be analyzed. And we have to figure out ways to raise public awareness about all these issues because it's important and it's going to affect everyone. So, Sam, what do we have to start the show? What do we have on the agenda?
We're going to talk about the public speaking out and taking action. But first off, I want to give a big shout out to Pam at the Thrifty Nickel because she's a great info warrior, spreading the truth, raising public awareness. And we wouldn't be here without her.
Definitely. She's also one of our sponsors. She's always pushing our show. We really appreciate that, Pam.
Yeah.
So we will continue to rep the Thrifty Nickel. And we need to support businesses that support the info war, that support the free marketplace and liberty. That's very important.
Go by the shop on 1542 Clovis Avenue. They run a thrift shop consignment store over there, and check out their merchandise.
So what do we got?
To start off the show, Stuart, this is big news. Geoengineering was on the agenda at the Shasta County Board of Supervisors meeting. Okay? Geoengineering is very real. They call it chemtrails and try to make it into a conspiracy theory. It is geoengineering, and they packed that County Board of Supervisors hall in Shasta County with over 300 people, the most they've ever had at a meeting, led by Dane Wigington, who I want to give much respect to, much credit. He's been pounding away at this issue for a long time now at geoengineeringwatch.org. I suggest everyone go there and look at his research. He was the lead of the organizing and speaking there. They brought scientists, they brought pilots, they brought engineers, highly qualified people who I think their testimony is unrefutable, but I had to get that out there, and we're going to try to organize and do the same thing here in Fresno County.
It's important that we talk about this geoengineering going on because the environmentalists are pushing, Endangered Species Act, shutting down public access, but they don't talk about geoengineering, okay? They're not talking about the engineered drought, okay? So it's the hypocrisy in all these supposedly leftist groups, these neo-environmentalists. If they really care about the environment, maybe they should care about the spraying that's going on constantly. I mean, we see it here in Fresno. We're being sprayed almost every day. And why do you think our air quality is so horrible? Why do you think there's a drought? Why do you think, this is going on here and nothing's being done? It's because these neo-environmentalist groups are just pushing a certain agenda to try to make us care about that when we know what that agenda is, and that's Agenda 21.
Yeah, where's Greenpeace on geoengineering?
Yeah.
They're pushing Agenda 21 is what they're pushing, Stuart, and we know that, these neo-environmentalists. But California just named the state amphibian as the California red-legged frog, and so we could probably expect for public access anywhere where these frogs are located to be cut off. I mean, they're going to continue to hide behind endangered species under the fake flag of neo-environmentalism. Moving on here, Stuart, to some great local action that's going on. Finally, the public is at least organizing and protesting and letting their voice be heard. Marines are going to protest the Mexican consulate here in Fresno next Tuesday over Marine Andrew Tamurasili. I butchered his last name, but he's the U.S. Marine that's been in a Mexican jail for 100 days, and we see what's going on with the border crisis, but yet we have a man in a Mexican jail there who took a wrong turn. And so we're going to see Marines here speaking out at the Mexican consulate, and We Are Change Fresno will be there to give you video and interviews from that protest.
How dare you criticize the Mexican government? That's racist. It's unbelievable. You should be so mad that our government literally doesn't obey its own laws, letting all these illegal immigrants in. Wow, we can't barter or make some deal to get our Marine back that just took a wrong turn. Okay, so you take a wrong turn into Mexico, but you take a wrong turn or a right turn into America. Well, you're just giving everything for free while we pay for it. Okay, so if you're cool with that, then I guess enjoy being a slave when all these immigrants literally bankrupt the entire system.
Stuart, it's absurd. We did an hour show last night on our CMAC show. It'll be uploaded to YouTube. I suggest everybody check that out about immigration. There's a lot to go over about that. We got a lot of other news, but the one main point I want to make about this whole immigration thing and the poor children, yes, it is humanitarian crisis caused by our own federal government. But hey, folks, we have poor children here that are American citizens that we need to take care of first before we take care of illegal alien children. I'm sorry for their plight in life, but we need to take care of home first. And think about this. That story brushed the VA scandal right off the front pages. We have 636 veterans waiting over a month for appointments and another 8,000 waiting 4 months. And a large majority of the homeless population out there are veterans. Let's take care of those people first before we take care of any illegal aliens.
Are we going to, they're talking about we need to take care of these illegal immigrants, these legal children that are coming over here. What about a Mexican American that's an American citizen that's a child? And what if he's in poverty? Well, we can't help out him? I mean, if you can't take care of your own to start, you're not going to be able to take care of the millions that are going to be crossing in the next couple of years. It's going to be millions on top of the ones that we already have here illegally for years and decades now. But it's going to overwhelm the system. And, are we going to take care of the minority children that are in poverty here? I mean, look at Chicago. The city is, it's in distress. And the kids can't go to school without worrying about getting shot. We can't not take care of our own, and we're not going to be able to take care of these children correctly. But either way, we don't have a rule of law. Okay, and yes, you need to go check out the video that we did yesterday because we had a guest on talking about it, and he made a lot of sense. Everything what he was saying was making sense, and he's a Mexican American. Okay, so we need to think logically here, or you can't let your emotions get the best of you.
This whole border crisis, I don't want to get too much into it, but along with these children is coming disease. Is coming the Mexican drug cartels, MS-13 to name one of them. There's a lot more than that. And another thing that's coming with them is Al-Qaeda, Muslim extremists, jihadists. And like the Iranian president threatened when we were in heated war talks about going after them, he said that there's sleeper cells in the United States that will attack if we attack Iran. And so think about that, folks. All this stuff's coming in, not just poor children. They're spreading disease like it's going to be a health care epidemic in this country, okay? Because drug-resistant TB, scabies, there's already Border Patrol reporting that they're being infected by this stuff.
I got one more thing to say when it comes to the border crisis, then we'll move on. I work at a club where you have to be 21 and older. I have to legally check IDs or we can be shut down. I have to check everyone's ID to make sure they're over 21 of legal age to drink. Okay, and I have to check someone who looks over 70. I still have to check their ID. But we're letting these children in. How do we know all of them are children? I mean, do they have ID cards? How do we know that they're not 30? And that's what's being reported is that they're calling them children, but they could also be up to the age of 30. So you really think that carding a 70-year-old, an American citizen that's just trying to go have a drink, and then letting anyone who's anybody just cross the border and not checking nothing? I mean, undocumented completely? How does that make sense? Okay? Because we might as well just boycott checking IDs anywhere. I mean, honestly, why? For what?
Stuart, the U.S. Department of Defense, in conjunction with the Department of Homeland Security and the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, are now scouting for unused facilities such as massive airport hangars and other structures to convert into FEMA camps as soon as possible to accommodate the massive influx of illegal aliens being shipped across the border via U.S. funded operations. And so is this a false flag against the American citizens to declare martial law, declare a state of emergency, and already have these FEMA camps set up? It looks like that could very well be in the cards, because public sentiment is against the government at this point. Congress has a 7% approval rating. People are waking up to all the lies and saying, what the hell's really going on here? They got the FEMA camps set up, and they're building more because of these illegal immigrants coming over here.
Yeah, that's the cover. You know, they're going to overwhelm the system and then say, oh, we got to impose martial law, when they engineered it. They engineered the financial collapse, 2008. They're going to engineer another one because they've been printing money like it's going out of style to devalue our dollar. And then everything's just going to go to hell. And then they're going to use that as a reason, oh, well, we can save you. We're the government. We're the saviors, even though we engineered everything to put you in camps and to suppress you. So these children that are coming across the border, I'm sorry, it's a horrible disaster that they're coming from where they're coming from. They're leaving one tyranny to come to an even worse tyranny. It will be a worse tyranny, okay? So it's, we need to speak out against this before we're all slaves. And before, it might be better for a little bit for them, but honestly, they're coming into an Orwellian police state coming to the United States.
Look up Rex 84. Please look it up. Stuart, they are undermining our veterans because they know that our veterans have the training and the wherewithal and are awake, the majority of them, they have the skills to fight back against this tyrannical government. And as they warmonger all over the mainstream media, what they're doing quietly is handing out pink slips to soldiers over there in Afghanistan. I want to end the war too, but this is the wrong way to do it. They're just cutting their service. Roughly 2,600 are going to be let go. And these are people with families to support. And what are they going to do when they get back to this country if they have health problems? The VA sure not going to take care of them. It's disgusting how they treat the people that serve us.
When are they going to realize, when are our troops going to realize that they are a number in the military-industrial complex's game, okay? They're just a number, and they're using you to fight the wars of aggression we don't need to be in, and you're not benefiting at all. They're getting pink slips while they're on the job, okay? They're living in hell, trying to serve, thinking that they're serving our country to protect our freedom while we're losing it, and then getting served on the spot, on the job, saying, hey, you're getting fired, okay? And they already have PTSD. I mean, it's a horrible situation, and we just need to bring the troops home, okay? It's some of the best American citizens are our military, and we're putting them in harm's way for no reason. I mean, really, there's no point. If we're at war to fight for our freedom, why are we losing our freedom, okay? It does not make sense. And most of the military is really starting to get that, because they're actually being trained to take on American citizens for martial law. I mean, they are literally being told, yes, you may have to be on the streets of, the city you live in, okay, and keeping the peace, because it's going to be chaos.
Psychiatrists are now projecting that 1 in 3 U.S. troops will suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder when they return. Our soldiers are committing suicide in record numbers, and being prescribed antidepressant drugs, which have suicidal side effects. So they're chewing them up, spitting them out. Our southern borders being invaded right now. We need to end all foreign wars, bring our troops home, and defend our southern border from the invasion. Al-Qaeda's coming right across. I mean, a Muslim prayer rug, for one example, was found along the trail of human smuggling. And so that's one example. We're at war with the drug cartels. We're at war with the Muslim extremist jihadists, Al-Qaeda. And so our borders are wide open for these enemies to come right on over with the poor children. Refugees, is that what they are? No, they're illegal aliens.
Yeah, we don't know what age they are. If they're undocumented, how do we know that they're not a potential terrorist? But even then, the war on terror is a fraud, and that's why it's such a fraud, is because wouldn't it make sense to protect your border where you're just letting people... I mean, it would be pretty simple for a an Islamic jihadist to just walk across the border. And then, how can you argue that? That's just obvious. That's logic. But anyway, we're going to take a quick break, folks. Here's a word from our sponsor, FresnoForward.com.
Listen up, Fresno. Are you tired of boring local news coverage? Then log on to FresnoForward.com, the Central Valley's #1 source for independent, local, and alternative news and views. FresnoForward.com is updated daily, bringing you stories on government corruption, local activism, Fresno culture, and so much more. Did I mention FresnoForward.com has no ads or signups required? FresnoForward.com. You'll love it.
Folks, we're back. I'm your host, Stuart Webb, with my co-host, Sam Chaney. Sam, what do we have in our second segment today on the schedule?
Our economy going down in a ball of flames. Like we continue to go over on this show, and we will always continue to go over, we need to end the Federal Reserve central banking cartel in an orderly fashion. It is a private banking cartel, Stuart, that has continually consolidated our economy to where we have now 6 banks running everything. They've been labeled too big to fail by the Justice Department. The fundamentals of it is it's debt-based. We will never repay this debt. Combined, all the debt, unfunded liabilities, we're looking at $200 trillion, which can never be paid back. But they will continue to bleed the American citizens for every last dime they can get. Wake up, folks. We are all debt slaves. Who do you know that does not have some form of debt? Probably no one at this point, because the system's designed to get you into debt for your whole life so you can never get ahead and rise up and become free and independent from this debt-based monetary system.
Yeah, and with your dollar devaluing and your purchasing power decreasing, that's not going to help, okay? And so I would advise you to not be buying new cars unless you have the money to buy cash, because the only way to not be in debt and to make a good investment and not a malinvestment is through hard work, sacrifice, and savings. Okay, and what the Federal Reserve does is that they muddy the markets by lowering interest rates and printing money, and the money doesn't even go directly to you. It just allows you to lowering the interest rates allows you to take out loans you really can't afford, whether it be for a house, a business, for that car loan, that new car that you want to go, oh, well, the interest rate's low. Yeah, but what happens when the interest rates rise? Will you be able to pay it back? Okay? That's assuming that your job is that you will keep your job throughout that whole time you're paying that back, which is not guaranteed. So when they artificially lower the interest rates to where it's not where the market has not created that interest rate. The Fed has literally set the interest rate. That what's the word, Sam? It's
rigged.
It's rigged. No, and it doesn't allow the people trying to start new businesses or buying homes. It doesn't allow them to see the market for what it really is, to see clearly. Okay. Now, if the interest rate was high and the Fed wasn't messing with it, then that would mean it's not a good time to invest. Okay. That would be a malinvestment. You can't sustain that. Okay. It's not through real savings. And there's also not real savings in the bank. So who's going to buy, the product for the place that you work? Who's going to buy that product? Will you have a job? Because they're muddying the markets. So we need to get the Fed out of controlling the interest rates and printing more money, period.
They are destroying investors' confidence. I would say that everybody needs to divest themselves from Federal Reserve debt notes and get into some real hard assets, gold, silver, things that you can use during a collapse, prepping items, storable food, water, guns, ammo. You can figure out what are hard assets that are going to retain their value. Because, Stuart, this last week, the Bank of Central Banks has been raising the red flag, giving the warning, the Bank of International Settlements, okay? This is the Bank of Central Banks. They say that the world economy is just as vulnerable to a financial crisis as it was in 2007, with the added danger that debt ratios are now far higher and emerging markets have been drawn into the fire as well. That's a warning issued by the Bank of International Settlements. Hey, folks, you better listen up, because when they start telling you it's time to look out, it's time to look out.
Yeah, and if you see the BRICS moving away from the dollar. Okay, 5 major economies are moving away from the dollar. They're starting their own bank, and they don't want to deal with the Western banks, Western funding that's been controlling international trade. And so that's a sign of the dollar weakening and, problems that are going to arise pretty soon here, okay? We're seeing it now. The dollar will not be the world reserve currency, okay? And that's why we've been able to get away with everything that's happening, is because the dollar still had power and had influence because we were the world reserve currency. But when major economies start to move away from that, like Russia, China, Brazil, South Africa, and India, that's a lot of people. That's a huge population of people, okay, moving away from using our dollar, okay? So that's not a good sign, and it's going to create problems and deficits. We already have deficits, trade deficits, but it's gonna be bad, okay, for us.
Developing countries are getting tired of being screwed over by the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. If you take a look at John Perkins' work, the Confessions of an Economic Hitman, he talks about he worked as an economist going into these countries, and they would either buy off the dictator puppet guy in charge, or they would assassinate him and do a coup in that country. And then what they do is they loan these countries money at exorbitant interest rates, which they know they can never pay back, and make them put up their natural resources and infrastructure as collateral. And they've been literally stealing. And this is all from money they made out of nothing. Okay. Yeah. It's made up. It's fictitious. The rest of the world is done. They're tired of it. They've been burned. It's over. Okay. Russia, Brazil, India, China, South Africa, they are forming a coalition to do their own financing and help out the developing world, which by all rights they should, because the Anglo-American establishment banking cartel has burned everybody down to the ground. America and I want to correct Stuart here real quick, with the thing I'm trying to do to break the mind control, which a big part of it is the language. For instance, it's not a dollar. It's not a United States dollar, okay? It's a Federal Reserve debt note. And one other note on that, breaking the mind control, how Stuart mentioned, I want to give him credit for that, is they're not environmentalists. They are neo-environmentalists. And one more thing, which we were talking to a tea partier out at the Clovis Farmers Market, was an interesting point he brought up. Don't call people workers. They are employees, because workers is a communist term. We need to break this mind control and use the proper terminology for what things really are.
Yeah, exactly. If you're a worker, that means it gives a tone that, oh, you have to work. You're being forced into work, and there are horrible conditions. No, you're an employee of a business. Okay, that's what you are. You're an employee of a business. And if you want to go start in a real free market, which we don't live in anymore, we don't live in a free market, because when the government steals from the fruits of your labor, I mean, yeah, that's not a free market. So we need to stop calling people workers. They're employees. I'm an employee of a company. If I want to work for myself, I can in a free market and make money. So in a free market, we don't have workers, okay? We don't have slave workers, but that's the problem. We've been conditioned to think that if you're an employee of a business, that you automatically have the upper hand, and we feel so bad for you that you have to work for this company that's so terrible, okay? That is completely anti-American, okay? That's like saying if you work for yourself and own your own business and don't have any employees, you're horrible, but you're an employee, or you're a worker of your own business. So what are you? I mean, you're terrible, but then also a hero. I mean, what? It's this mind control and this doublethink that we need to reject, because in a free market capitalist society, you have the ability to make something of yourself. Okay. You can make that choice. There's no one telling you have to work for this company. You have to work for that company. You're a slave to this person. No, you can go make money, and you should be able to keep the fruits of your labor. But of course, our government literally steals from us every single dollar we make. They steal a portion of it. And that's what it is. It's becoming literally stealing. Okay, that's the way I look at it. But in a real free market capitalist society, we don't have workers. We have employees. We have entrepreneurs. Okay.
Yeah, that's part. We need to deprogram from the mainstream propaganda and lies, and part of it, a big part of it, is rejecting their political correctness and their mind control word games that they use, their neuro-linguistic programming when they talk real soft like that and try to get you into a trance. But Stuart, I want to move on here too. Wow, I guess if you're in the business of government, you're doing great. The White House Office of Management and Budget has estimated that in the full fiscal year for 2014, the federal government will collect $3 trillion. I have a hard time even saying that. $3 trillion in taxes, but they cannot restrain themselves from spending, from buying off everybody. And even with collecting $3 trillion in taxes, they're still going to run a $650 billion deficit. So they can't even manage all the money they steal.
Exactly. So I think it was $1 trillion in income tax alone. $1 trillion just off of literally stealing the fruits of your labor, taking directly from you working. And that's not just rich business owners. That's everyone. Income tax. Okay. So $1 trillion in income tax, $3 trillion total, and there's still gonna be $500 billion, more than $500 billion, in spending more than they've taken in. Okay, so that's just gonna be right on top of that $17 trillion that we're gonna continue. How long do you think the debt has to be liquidated? There has to be some sort of collapse so that the markets can become clear again. Okay, because this is all fake wealth, just like the stock market is so high right now, right? That's because it's not real. None of that money went to anyone. That was literally the Fed printing money going straight to certain special interests to make their stocks high. Okay, and that's an illusion of wealth. Okay, just like Sam said, where is all the wealth? Where's all the everyone's doing terrible. So how is the stock market so high? Okay, no one's producing anything. So how is the stock market doing so well? Okay. It's an illusion. It's not real wealth. And that's why these countries, these big economies, are moving away from the dollar, because it's an illusion.
Get out of these bubbles before they pop. Stuart, this is collectivism, okay? That's what this government is selling us, is collectivism. That's why we fought World War II, was to defeat collectivism, okay? They're squeezing the individual, the single highest source, like you said earlier, of the government's tax revenue is the individual income tax, which they're squeezing the daylights out of everybody that pays taxes. You know this. It was $1 trillion. The second highest was another fraud, Social Security, insurance, and retirement receipts. Then that was $784 billion. And so you see the individual is being squeezed out for the collective. And we know how that ends. It ends in FEMA camps.
Exactly. And just like the whole border crisis, we're going to have to absorb all those, we're going to have to absorb to pay for those people that don't have jobs. I mean, they're coming right onto the dole. Okay. They're not coming in here, and they're not skilled workers that are going to start working in the workforce. No, they don't even speak English. Okay. So that's going to be a huge problem, and that's going to continue coming out of your income tax. Oh, but I guess we're racist for trying to warn you. Oh, yeah. But yeah, just keep working hard so they can take more of your money. The income tax is a communist. It's a communist
collectivist.
It's a collectivist. I believe it was in the Communist Manifesto. Is one of the an income tax is one of the 10 points that you have to have the communist utopia is a graduated income tax, I believe. Yeah, so that's what's happening right now in our country. Okay, it's been going on, but now it's getting completely ridiculous, and then you kind of realize why work so hard, right? But anyway, we're going to take a quick break, folks. Here's a word from our sponsor, FresnoForward.com.
Listen up, Fresno. Are you tired of boring local news coverage? Then log on to FresnoForward.com, the Central Valley's #1 source for independent, local, and alternative news and views. FresnoForward.com is updated daily, bringing you stories on government corruption, local activism, Fresno culture, and so much more. Did I mention FresnoForward.com has no ads or signups required? FresnoForward.com. You'll love it.
Folks, we're back. This is We Are Change Fresno. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Stuart Webb, with my co-host, Sam Chaney. Sam, what are we going to talk about these last two segments?
We're going to talk about the criminal banking cartel, the commercial banks in this country that masquerade like they're free market, and they don't screw everybody over every single chance they get. They collapsed the economy during 2008, the housing crisis. They pumped up the bubble and then popped it, left a bunch of people in foreclosure, gave a bunch of people loans they couldn't afford. They knew this. No one was ever criminally prosecuted because the Department of Justice, led by Eric Holder, said these banks are too big to fail. It will cause systemic financial collapse. Well, that's what needs to happen in a free market capitalist system, is when you overextend yourself and you can't pay your debts, you go bankrupt and you fail and you go out of business, and the next guy rises up that can do a better job. So now they're saying, oh, well, everything's okay. We just need to pay a fine. Well, that's the cost of doing business now for these criminal banks. JP Morgan Chase is going to go ahead and pay $13 billion. And then we see Citigroup for this whole mortgage collapse. People are still homeless. That's a big influx of homeless people who lost their homes due to these criminal banks' activities. Citigroup is going to go ahead and pay $7 billion, and then Bank of America is fighting to pay $13 billion, but then the Justice Department says, well, that's not a big enough payoff. We're going to take $17 billion. That's just the cost of doing business for these criminal banks.
It's a front for, the government and the governments and the banks, they work together. They're a team, okay? The government works for the Criminal Federal Reserve, which is private. And then the government allows the banks to be bailed out, okay? But they're all in cahoots with each other, okay? And guess who's paying for it? We're paying for it, okay? And then they act like, oh, okay, so if they got to pay a $7 billion fine or a $17 billion fine or $13 billion, whatever that is, okay, so they've obviously committed crimes, okay? You can't just say, oh, well, we're going to fine you. Well, no, they've obviously done damage. There's been criminal actions. That's why they have to pay these fines. But no one's getting arrested. No one's going to jail. And I read the article. Holder said something. Oh, we're not done. With these banks. People are going to pay the price. Someone's going to be responsible for this. Well, Eric Holder ran Fast and Furious. Eric Holder breaks the law all the time. So how are we going to trust Eric Holder to prosecute criminals when he is himself a criminal? Okay. So, but just think about it. Oh, so if I commit crimes, can I just pay a fine? Well, no, I can't. But the big banks can. So that's how you know that the government and the banks, it's basically the same thing. It's unbelievable.
They're guilty of accounting fraud at the very least. They go in there with the SEC. They change the rules all around. It's fraud, straight up. Moving on here with our great Attorney General, Eric Holder. He has been pumping out propaganda, the predictive programming to set the stage that homegrown violent extremists are going to strike here at home. He says it keeps him up at night, just like the Boston bombing. And there's a lot of evidence that was staged. We don't know because they killed the two guys that were supposedly behind that. And they used Boston as a test ground for martial law. Eric Holder is, he's out there in the media saying that homegrown terrorists who are motivated by domestic concerns keep him up at night.
Yeah, well... I can't believe this. I can believe it, but the fact that he's actually saying it now, that he's worried about homegrown terrorism. Okay, then why don't you close the borders? Okay? See, there's no argument there. Okay? You can't enforce laws that are already on the books, but you're worried about terrorism. Okay? While millions are just walking across the border, and you act like you're checking every single one of them as they come in illegally, which you're helping traffic children. Smuggling children illegally into the United States, and then saying, oh, no, yeah, or what, are you assuring us that none of them are terrorists? but you're worried about homegrown terrorists. Yeah, what you're worried about is law-abiding gun owners, because you hate the Second Amendment, and as you said in the 90s, we just need to brainwash the public into thinking about guns in a vastly different way. Yes, because you want to take our guns. You want to take them. You don't like the Second Amendment. You don't like the Constitution. And that's why you don't follow the law and you don't prosecute criminals, because you are a criminal. So it doesn't surprise me that you say that, even though it's so ridiculous that you actually try. You want us to believe that we keep you up at night if we own a gun, or if we're a law-abiding citizen, because that's what you're saying. Veterans, gun owners, that's the ones that you think that are going to commit these homegrown terrorist actions. That's what you're implying. That's what the Department of Homeland Security has been implying for years now.
He's setting the stage for some more false flags. He says, these lone wolves, these homegrown violent extremists are people who keep me up at night as well. And that's a direct quote from him. Yeah, they're setting the stage. They're saying that the Tea Party are going to go ahead and do an attack. And that's what they're setting the stage for, white Al-Qaeda. They're saying that, I know it sounds bizarre. Look it up. You could see where they're saying these type of things, that the Tea Party is going to join with Al-Qaeda and attack the federal government. That's the most absurd thing that you could possibly even think of. But the dumbed down public out there just catches a soundbite, and when they stage something like this, they may very well stage it to be like that. They're training to go ahead and go after the American citizens. The number one threat declared by the Department of Homeland Security is returning veterans. And where do you think returning veterans are going to do when they come home and they see that the country they were defending is collapsing before their eyes? Probably one of the first things they're going to go do is look up their local Tea Party movement and go to one of their meetings and find out what they can do politically.
Yeah, and when they stage one of these events and blame it on law-abiding citizens, Tea Partyists, law-abiding white gun owners, or even not even white, just gun owners in general, people that believe in the Bill of Rights and Constitution. We're all Americans. We're all of different races, okay? And a lot of people that aren't just white believe in the Constitution, okay? So they're going to stage something, and then they're going to have presidential notifications to your phone, and Obama's going to come on and say, I have a very important message. We've just had a terrorist attack, and it's a Tea Party extremist. You need to please call the Department of Homeland Security if you see someone who with a cowboy hat in your neighborhood, because they could be a suspect. Okay, look, we're all suspects and we're all the enemy. If you're not a criminal, you're basically the enemy of the government. Okay, look at the Boston bombing. They shut down the entire city. Okay, they were ripping people out of their homes. They were. I mean, literally, that's no BS. I mean, I saw the footage. They were they shut down 20 miles, within 20 miles of where it happened, and basically the Constitution was completely suspended. Okay, that is martial law. And if people don't think that that's going to happen throughout the entire country when maybe a nuke goes off or something, because that's what President Obama fears the most. He even said, "I'm worried about a nuke going off in Manhattan." I wonder why. Why would you worry about that? Is it do you have plans? I mean, come on. So they're gonna kill switch the internet when we do this massive attack, and they're gonna have the president come on and say, this is the enemy and the government's your friend. Listen to us.
Let me get this out there right now. I want no violence or harm toward anybody in the government ever.
Absolutely.
But know that this is their mode of operation, and they continually get caught in these false flag operations with no explanation. They can't explain 9/11, all right? I'm not going to get into that right now, but they cannot explain it. The ultimate goal, I'm going to get into NSA now. The ultimate goal of the NSA is total population control. At least 80% of all audio calls, not just metadata, are recorded and stored in the U.S., says whistleblower William Binney. That's a totalitarian mentality. William Binney is one of the highest level whistleblowers to ever emerge from the NSA. He's a great patriot. I want to give him a lot of credit for speaking out, because it takes real balls to do it, to speak out the way he did. He came out way before Snowden ever did, and he gave us a lot of information about what's really going on with the NSA spying on American citizens. He goes on to say at least 80% of fiber optic cables globally go via the U.S. He says this is no accident and allows the U.S. to view all communications coming in, at least 80% of all audio calls, not just metadata, and recorded and stored in the U.S. The NSA lies about what it stores. That's from a top-level whistleblower. And think about this. We're destroying confidence all over the world. We're making enemies all over the world. Germany has said they've cut off their contract with Verizon. No more Verizon contract for Germany. And they're talking about they're going to go back to typewriters to pass around intelligence because they don't trust all the NSA spying. The rest of the world has had enough. Wake up, America.
Think about it. If you read the book 1984, we are literally living in like 1984 times 1,000. Okay, we walk around. Everyone's got a cell phone. You have literally a tracking device that can hear and track everything you say and store your metadata constantly. I mean, there's more cell phones on this planet than there are people. Okay, people in India sometimes they don't even have a place to sleep, but they have a cell phone. I mean, they've literally conditioned us into walking with the mark of the beast, basically. And Big Brother is always with us, okay? Always, because we have cell phones. So we need to be aware of that. William Benny said there's 15 to 20 trillion constitutional violations just in the U.S. alone due to the NSA spying. I mean,
it's a felony every time they illegally wiretap.
Exactly.
With no warrant.
And if that doesn't concern you, oh, you got nothing to hide. Oh, you got nothing to hide? Sam, why can't we just let's just go set up cameras in your house then? Because you got nothing to hide. I just want to make sure you're not a terrorist. And that's what they're trying to condition us they've literally been doing this in cities now, saying, hey, the Department of Homeland Security is in your city. If you see something, say something. If you see anything suspicious, what does that mean? Something suspicious? Just if I see someone walking down the street that I don't like the look of him, I just call you and say, I don't like this guy, he looks suspicious. What, and I get arrested? That's not a free society. That is not America, okay? So we're living in 1984. Get over the whole fact that this is my thing, is that most people that say they have nothing to hide, they know that they're scared. They're scared, and they don't want to admit how horrible it is because they know, oh, I got nothing to hide. I don't care if they spy on me. All right, you just don't want to do anything about it. That is it. That's it. Oh, what are you, Stu? You're conspiracy theorists? Oh, you think the NSA is really spying on you? Well, it's come out. Well, yeah, I know it's come out. Well, what are you so scared about? Well, no, I'm not scared. They're violating my constitutional rights. Okay, and I'm convinced that people that just kind of brush off these things that we're talking about here, they're scared to just admit it, and even when they do admit it, they just don't want to do anything about it because when they realize how horrible it is, if they accept it and stop being ignorant to it, then they're actually going to have to go protest. They're actually going to have to do a radio show. They're going to have to do a YouTube channel because you can't just sit around. If you stop being ignorant and accept it, you can't just sit around. Your conscience will come into play and say, "Hey, you got to do something to stop this, or you're going to be a slave."
That's right, men. Grow up, stand up, grow some balls. Okay. We need to speak out against the NSA. Oh, maybe you haven't done anything. Maybe you're a model Christian that walks in the path of Jesus Christ. More power to you. I wish I could be that pure. But the fact is that they're creating a snitch culture just like Nazi Germany, where you turn in your neighbor and then the next one to be turned in is going to be you. And think about this. You may not do anything wrong now, but in the future, they may make a law against whatever you thought you were doing now was legal and go back and retroactively enforce it. They can very well do that.
Well, what happens, Christians, and I'm a Christian myself, but what happens when they say, the Bible, that's kind of extreme. So what? Your neighbor's now going to say, yeah, well, I saw him with a Bible. He just came from church. I should turn him in. Well, then what are you going to say? Well, you didn't stand up for that guy that was just smoking a joint on the corner. You turned him in because pot's illegal.
Smoking cigarettes now.
Stuart. Oh yeah. Oh, just anything. Oh, that person was
tobacco cigarettes, man. They'll turn you in for smoking tobacco cigarettes in the park.
Anything. Talking too loud. Oh, that person was kind of yelling. I didn't like it. Turn him in.
Drought shaming.
Yeah. And so
that's a new social phenomenon, drought shaming.
Shaming.
And
people who water too much, right?
Yeah. They're
Drought shaming.
People drought shaming. People are posting on social media where their neighbors are watering at the supposed wrong time, while the government just wastes water like to no end.
Yeah, when you know what, people that drought shame or even just snitch on anyone, especially for something really stupid. I mean, it's one thing if someone's literally committing a crime, and maybe you should just go try to stop them instead of snitch on them. You know, do something about it.
No.
People that drought shame, you know what? Maybe we should just we should shame that you're drought shaming. We should take pictures of you taking pictures. I mean, seriously, it never ends. And if you're going to be a snitch for the criminal government, well, that's just going to come back to haunt you. Believe me.
That's right. Yep.
That's right. Woody said it.
Can we take a break, bro?
Yeah. Folks, we're going to take a quick break since we can't really, we're not being serious right now. Here's a word from our sponsor, FresnoForward.com.
Listen up, Fresno. Are you tired of boring local news coverage? Then log on to FresnoForward.com, the Central Valley's #1 source for independent, local, and alternative news and views. FresnoForward.com is updated daily, bringing you stories on government corruption, local activism, Fresno culture, and so much more. Did I mention FresnoForward.com has no ads or signups required? FresnoForward.com. You'll love it.
Folks, we're back. This is our last segment. This is We Are Change Fresno on 1680 AM. I'm your host, Stuart Webb, with my co-host, Sam Chaney. Sam, what do we have in our last segment?
Second Amendment, the wars and solutions. In the 20th century alone, government murdered 262 million disarmed people. And that's why we do this show, to let you know. The term is democide, and it was coined by Professor Rummel out of Hawaii University. I please beg you to look up democide. That is government murdering its own citizens. If they disarm America, that is exactly what's going to happen, because there'll be nothing holding them back from putting us in FEMA camps and exterminating us.
The government is a huge criminal operation if you don't keep it in check. That's why the free market, free market's so important. This is the definition of a free market: an economic system in which prices are determined by unrestricted competition between privately owned businesses. Okay, that's the ultimate freedom. And you know what? That sorts itself out. There's not a criminal enterprise, the government, which is our government, stealing from our labor and using it to then prosecute us for any reason or just to control us completely and illegally against the Constitution. So the government democide is real. And look at the VA. I mean, veterans are dying. They're not getting the care that they need. Maybe we should have left the government out of stealing our money to pay for health care and let the veterans just get paid and get their own insurance. And if they weren't taxing us so much, that the health insurance would actually be probably pretty affordable and they would get the care they need. So it's government uses taxation to control us and to eventually control us to the point where we're dead, where we're done, where we can't function.
262 million the last century were killed by their own government. Let that sink in. It can happen here. It's happening now very slowly through incrementalism. They want to ratchet it up to where they just put a gun to your head and kill you in the FEMA camp.
That's just civilians, though, huh?
That's just civilians.
Just civilians have been killed by government. 260 million. Ridiculous.
That right
Wake up.
That right there is why we must fight with every fiber of our being against collectivism, because the collectivist governments are what brought democide to their own people. Stuart, I want to move on here to, excuse me, another way how they're backhandedly attacking the Second Amendment here, since they can't openly just ban a constitutional right that we have, is through Operation Choke Point. Senator Ted Cruz, in his list of 76 lawless Obama actions, says that number 8 on that list, government agencies are engaging in Operation Choke Point, where the government asks banks to choke off access to financial services for customers engaging in conduct the administration doesn't like, such as ammunition sales.
Oh, I guess that's the Constitution now. If the government doesn't like it, we're just going to not allow banks to fund to allow you to bank and use their financial services just because we don't like your business model, even though it's completely legal. owning weapons, owning guns. It's legal, okay? It's called the Second Amendment. So that's just effectively making their own constitution and saying, "Oh, we don't like guns, so we're just gonna tell banks they can't open bank accounts to, firearms dealers."
That's one of the many backhanded ways that they're trying to limit our Second Amendment. They just put more sanctions on Russia, which made it illegal to have a Kalashnikov.
Yeah.
And so now to the war. There was just we're still learning about it, but there was a civilian airliner shot down over Ukraine. They're still sorting it out. But let me tell you, the mainstream media is warmongering the heck out of it, saying that the United States needs to go poke their nose over there. We need to not poke our nose over there, bring our troops home, like I continually say, and defend our own borders. But a prediction from Albert Pike, who was an Arkansas lawyer, a writer, and a Confederate brigadier general. He was also a grand master of a Luciferian group known as the Order of the Pendulum or Sovereign Council of Wisdom. And interestingly enough, he is the only Confederate soldier to have a statue of himself in Washington, D.C. He predicted the first two world wars with very much accuracy before they ever happened. There is controversy that his letter, where I'm reading this prediction from, is not authentic. I suggest you go read it yourself and make up your own decision. Search Albert Pike predicts 3 world wars. His prediction goes like this. The Third World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences caused by the agents of the Illuminati between the political Zionists and the leaders of Islamic world. The war must be conducted in such a way that Islam, the Muslim Arabic world, and the political Zionist, the state of Israel, mutually destroy each other. Meanwhile, the other nations, once more divided on this issue, will be constrained to fight to the point of complete physical, moral, spiritual, and economic exhaustion. We shall unleash the nihilist and the atheist, and we shall provoke a formidable social cataclysm, which is, in all its horror, will show clearly to the nations the effect of absolute atheism, origin of savagery, and of most bloody turmoil. Then, everywhere the citizens obligated to defend themselves against the world minority of revolutionaries will exterminate those destroyers of civilization, and the multitude disillusioned with Christianity will distract spirits will from that moment be without compass or direction, anxious for ideal, but without knowing where to render its adoration, will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of pure doctrine of Lucifer brought finally out in the public view. This manifestation will result from the general reactionary movement, which will follow the destruction of Christianity and atheism. That was a mouthful, but it had to be said.
It sounds like complete chaos, and that's where we're headed. I mean, and yes, it's an attack on Christianity, and just godlessness in general is being promoted, okay? Oh, yeah, especially when you got big celebrities like Katy Perry. Oh, she used to be a Christian singer. Now she's just, I don't believe in God. Okay, that's going to be, it's going to be a tough road ahead if we have godlessness in our society, okay? And it's very important that we speak out against these elite secret societies, Skull and Bones, the Group, Knights Templar, the Illuminati, okay? They're all different chapters and sects of all these secret societies, and they all have the same agenda, and that's the destruction of humanity. I mean, really, when it comes down to it, they hate humanity, and they hate God, okay? They're very well aware. They're not atheists at all. They worship Satan. They just hate God, okay? And, these people, when you really start reading about them and you kind of match it to what's going on, they're undoubtedly controlling and provoking what's going on, and it is not good for society and humanity, okay?
They want to bring Satan worship out in the open, and that is exactly what they're doing. Look at your mainstream pop stars. I mean, it's absurd. Stuart, the Catholic Church now, What have they done? Pope Francis admits that about 2% of Catholic clergy are pedophiles. That's BBC reporting that. He says, well, it's only 8,000 priests out of a global number of 414,000. I mean, I'm at a loss for words. 8,000 priests Pope Francis admits are pedophiles.
Oh, only 8,000. I mean, it's out of a big number, so there's only out there. Yeah, then maybe we should get them out of being priests. We should, I mean, they need to be in jail or something. I mean, if they're raping children, if they're if they're doing something wrong, they need to be punished for it. Okay, so just saying, oh, there's only 8,000. That's like saying, there's only 8,000 rapists that are bishops in the church or preachers, or there's only, well, then we got to do something about it because they shouldn't be in that position, and it should be a bigger deal. I don't know why the Pope is saying, oh, well, it's only this many. I mean, that's,
It's absurd. It's on BBC. Look it up. Now to some good news after all the horror that we brought you. Hopefully it sparks some activism in your heart.
We're just trying to wake you up, people.
Go out there and get politically active.
Yeah.
Do anything. Talk to your friends and family to start with, okay? But some good news finally here, Stuart, is that Australia has repealed their carbon tax now. So we see the pendulum shifting back to, this is fraudulent. Hey, wake up, state of California, with your fraudulent AB 32. Australia has said they're going to go ahead and turn off the carbon tax because it's a fraud.
People, it's taxing. Yeah, that is very good news. And I think it's going to start happening, especially in the United States. Many states are going to stand up to this carbon tax because they realize it's a complete fraud. And when the EPA and the federal government says, well, no, you have to, and they will say this, no, you have to abide. I know you're a state and you're supposed to have states' rights. We're just going to force you to impose the carbon tax. That's when you really even know it's a fraud, because literally they're willing to just bypass the Constitution once again to force states into this fraud carbon tax. People, we breathe oxygen and breathe out carbon, okay? And then plants take it in and create oxygen, okay? That taxing us to breathe, it's so immoral, and they're actually getting away with it. And you know what's even worse is that California is taxing us to breathe, and then they're also taxing us more to pay for the high-speed rail, and then using that money that they taxed us for to build the high-speed rail, buying carbon credits so that they can create more carbon when they build it, and less carbon use for us, cap and trade. Go do your research. It's so immoral. So they're saying that we have to be environmentally, bring down our green gas emissions and our carbon emissions, but then they're taxing us so that they can actually create more carbon for themselves to build what they want. It's just a complete rapage and pillaging of just the citizens. It's unbelievable.
As they geoengineer and aerosol spray us with heavy metals. Wow, Stuart. Yeah, the neo-environmentalists are doing a number, but at least Australia woke up. Some more good news is the fact that the American people have had enough. All across America, citizens are standing up. Over 300 cities now are forming protests against this illegal invasion by illegal aliens. And so that's great news. You won't hear much about it in the mainstream media, but there is going to be, after this show's broadcast, or I'm sorry, before this show's broadcast, whichever way it goes, Saturday, this is after, there's going to be a protest on all of the 99 against the illegal immigration invasion. So, and 300 cities now have signed up to stage these protests, so that's great news.
And I guarantee you there will be many Mexican Americans speaking out against this because they understand why they like America, and they like being a Mexican American citizen because they have the Bill of Rights and Constitution. And just getting rid of the border and becoming Mexico and getting rid of because essentially we're going to be getting rid of the Constitution because the government doesn't abide by the Constitution anyway. They don't want that, and they understand that'll mean slavery for all and freedom for none, okay? So, but anyway, what do we got left, Sam? We got about 40 seconds.
Well, there's a lot going on. There's Marines protesting. There's people protesting the immigration. Go to a Tea Party meeting. Go to a City Hall meeting. Go to a County Board of Supervisors meeting. There's a lot of things that you can do. You need to get active now while we still have the opportunity. and use your purchasing power. That's the power that we have that they can't control yet because we're not fully digital. Those Federal Reserve debt notes, they still count a little bit in this economy, and spend them wisely with local businesses. Boycott all multinational corporations.
Folks, we're out of time. Peace, love, and liberty. Until next week, good night.